well, this is the first animated movie of the year, and it had to land on the final week of January. So because it's still January, so it's still kind of like our fingers crossed. And that movie itself, it is the it is the story based on a popular graphic novel from the creators of Captain Underpants, both literally and figuratively. I'll get to that. The thing is that, well, it's Dogman. Dogman is the latest DreamWorks movie that came out. And, well, again, when it's a movie that kind of makes your eyes roll because of the January release, it's always a gamble. Although, honestly, it's horror movies that ones that gets the worst end of the stick when it's about that January curse. As for my stance on the cartoon itself, I gotta admit that I haven't read any of the graphic novels. I didn't even read the kind of like the Captain Underpants thing, but I will say that my first exposure to the whole thing was the movie, the Captain Underpants movie, and I must admit that the whole concept and the whole stuff and even the movie itself, it's so silly that I just kind of like enjoy it. I think I am one of those few people that I think I enjoy it a lot more compared to other people. I don't know if I'm weird or anything, but I get it. I get that that it's just a concept that is just has to be silly in mind, but it is delightfully silly. It's not kind of like an adult who wants to try to be a child, and it actually got the perspective of, well, it's just stuff that comes up from the mind of a very active kid, who has kind of like this silly imagination, and you just go with it. I even saw a few episodes of the streaming series of Captain Underpants. And then I began to research a little bit about the background of the whole Captain Underpants stuff, and I kind of realized that, yeah, after they finish up with Captain Underpants, they decided to go with a new one, which is technically the spin-off, which is none other than Dogman. And now here it is. Dogman is now currently having, like, I think it was 12 graphic novels, and a 13th one is coming up. I and, and honestly, I was kind of like, that kind of gave me a little bit of anticipation through the movie. It looks well animated. It looks kind of cute, I'll say. And it will have kind of like the same kind of style of humor that I found out on the Captain Underpants movie. Sorry if I'm sniffling a lot. I don't know why. Probably it's cold. but other than that, that gave me kind of like a positive vibe on it. And I also kind of grateful a little bit with Captain Underpants because I saw the movie when I was really down in the dumps because of a certain episode that made me really angry, and that one helped me cheer me out for a while. And okay, I think I drag a little bit too much about it, and well, it finally came the day that I was anticipating Dogman, and well, here's the thing that I want to say. I think a lot of the YouTube critics are being a little bit too harsh on this movie because, personally, I really enjoy it in this movie. I think that this is kind of like the movie in which I think here's the thing. I'm getting tired of people saying that, you're doing it for kids and all that stuff. BS. There's no kid stuff when you are making art. Everyone is accessible to it. It's just people, they just self-impose their own set of rules because of what you should show, what should not. People don't want to take responsibility of teaching their children or guide them on what they have to do. They just let the television do their job. Television, media, streaming, whatever you want to call it. But in the end, that was kind of like a movie that it doesn't take itself too seriously, and you just have to be kind of like in the mood of watching and somehow tolerate some, how can in a way, I will say non-cynical, harmless, silly humor. It's not kind of like these adult kind of stuff in which they act like a child, and then at the end they tend to abuse the farting, the blood, the gore, the swearing, and all this stuff. And I think these things are more childish compared to, well, the stuff that Dogman has. And in a certain way, Dogman, well, I can see why people they kind of pull out of it. There's some kind of like weird stuff, I'll say, but it's not kind of like super weird stuff, and I gotta say that this movie also have a little bit of layers of emotion that it sticks well. It's done. The movie, I think, is done well enough. It's just that I think that people will be taken back because they might not understand the weirdness or the how this is one of those movies that it goes with the fast pace. It's so fast paced, and it crams a lot of stuff going on that they're not gonna embrace the chaotic elements that this movie has. And I think I got used to it that I can find it forgiving. Jeez, I don't know why, but apparently the sirens are how can I say, they're out of their mind. Well, what you can do when you live in an apartment that is kind of like 7 blocks from a hospital. But okay. So I think I gotta tell you a little bit of specific what the movie is about. So Duckman, it really has the premise of what really hyperactive, imaginative kids will have, because, well, that's the thing. Even because if you remember, if you kind of go into the lore of Captain Underpants that I researched, the whole concept is basically about these 2 creative kids who love writing and creating comics, and of course they have to deal with this very angry, bitter principal that they hypnotize him, and they make him believe that he is the superhero that they created, which is none other than Captain Underpants. But of course, long story short, a lot of trouble happens, and then they have their final Captain Underpants moment, and they say that, okay, we had enough of Captain Underpants. Now let's make something else, and they create Duckman. And Duckman, it is as kind of like weird and crazy as you can ever think of, and this is the movie that we're getting. So now we're gonna start with what Duckman really is about. It's about this is kind of like a little bit like an origin story in which it starts out with a guy named Officer Knight and his dog named Greg, in which they're kind of like this dog and human duo. They're officers. They're chasing this big this evil cat named Petey. And well, Petey decides to get rid of them once and for all. So he makes the plan that it involves a bomb. The bomb explodes, and well, the guy, the human loses his head, and the dog loses his body. And the doctors are like, "Hey, you know what? Let's combine them together." And that turns into Dogman, human and the dog hybrid, and he's kind of like the best officer. He really helps. He helps the community. He's at odds against the evil machinations of Petey the cat, and so on, so on. I know. Bear with me. It sounds as silly as it is as disturbing, but when you overthink it. But then, of course, the movie gets into kind of like a vegetable soup of plot in which, like for example, we got Petey who he tries to get rid of Dogman. At the same time, he finds out about a dead fish that apparently has telekinesis, and so he decides to try to revive it in order to get rid of the good doers, people that do good things, and one of them, of course, is Dogman. We also have the plot that Dogman has to deal that he's lonely now that his girlfriend just decide that she doesn't want to deal with a guy who removed his head and replaced it with the dog and all that. We also have the chief having this love hate relationship with Dogman, as well that he has a crush with the reporter. And also we have that the mayor doesn't like that Petey escapes from jail, and she basically fires Dogman out of the case. And of course, then comes a little bit more kind of like the heart of the movie, in which Petey decides to clone himself, but the clone comes off as kind of like a child, and that kind of awakes him kind of like a very reluctant fatherly side out of him, but he tries to get rid of him, and of course the little kitty he goes into Dogman, which Dogman adopts him kind of like his own adoptive son. So yeah, what I'm telling you, it is really kind of like a big vegetable soup of plot, in which a lot of people will kind of convolute it. It is, but believe it or not, they handle most of the elements a lot better compared to other movies, to the point that it weirdly enough, they fit on what the narrative is going through. It's not as confusing as many people will think. It's just that I think that people are getting a little bit too harsh on a movie that doesn't feel like it kind of deserves it. There you go. This is the reason why I'm getting a little bit of sniffles. So let's talk a little bit about the character in itself. Let's say, for example, Dogman itself. Basically, he's sorry about that. Most of the movie, you don't need kind of like to know the voice actor. Although when he was a human, I couldn't find who was the guy who voiced him. But in terms of the character, well, let's say that Dogman is basically it kind of, people will kind of say that he's pretty much kind of like a Gary Stu, that he always kind of like doing the right thing. He's always kind of doing the right thing. He doesn't lose and all this stuff. And although I wouldn't go exactly that far. He's just kind of like good enough in itself. He's a good dog, let's say. Don't say it in front of him because he's gonna lick you. I actually enjoy his personality, that that he's dedicated to the job, and he can be also quite emotional, and he and he has a good heart. I like that. I like that thing even in the most blandish of of heroes. As long as it is kind of like written better and have some appeal, and he's appeal. And I'm not gonna lie, thanks to the animation style, the character design, and all this stuff, I gotta admit, he's cute. I like Duckman. It is cute, and I really like how how he communicates and talk well communicate with other people, especially when I kind of enjoy his relationship with the chief. The chief is played by Little Red Howery, according to IMDb. The thing is that I really like that the chief kind of has this love-hate relationship with Dogman. I mean, he respects him because he do his job, but at the same time, he's very annoyed that, well, he acts like a dog, and he's like, yeah, stop it, stop it, stop it. So I really laugh at that love-hate relationship, and it's because the guy respects him, but also he's a little bit jealous of the attention that he gets, especially from the media, because he has a crush on the reporter. And even the reporter actually, she's played by what was it? Isla Fisher. Yeah, Isla Fisher. She's always going around with a poodle, and she's also with this. She's basically kind of like the April O'Neil or what was the Polly Purebred from Underdog. Sweet Polly, sorry, Sweet Polly Purebred. She's obviously from Underdog, just in case. And she's also a little bit from kind of like the reporter from Cloudy with a Heart of with a Chance of Meatballs, because she's always followed by this the cameraman the cameraman also has kind of like his quirks. And I also kind of like that the cameraman has kind of, I think he was kind of like a little bit of a Scottish or Swedish accent. I can't pinpoint exactly what kind of accent that guy has. And also there's also the angry mayor who she always carry an M. But these are kind of like fine, nice characters. But I think that the biggest heart that the movie has is, and I think that also the comic also has, is that it's none other than Petey. Petey, who in this movie is voiced by Pete Davidson. He's basically kind of like the best character and the best aspect of the movie, because while you might accuse all these characters as two-dimensional, although they have their three-dimensionality in each one of them, I think it's because Petey is kind of like the most interesting, the most a little bit kind of like the most relatable, and kind of like the one who has the most layers compared to the other one. That this is why they think that he's kind of like the best character in the movie. And especially, and I think that other people will complain that, well, the movie is supposed to be about Dogman, and Dogman it doesn't feel like it is the Dogman movie. And trust me, it is the Dogman movie. Although it's kind of like the concept, but still, I like in a way. Petey I will say that it was kind of like my cautionary part of the movie, in the sense that he's always kind of a little bit of the same type of archetype, in which it's pretty common that Hollywood apparently has kind of like this bias against cats. They prefer making dogs being the heroes and cats always the villain. And this concept, it got a little bit tiring, to the sense that I can see why I hate Tom and Jerry, and I think that Tom and Jerry was also made by in how can I say, with the mind that they hated cats. I think Hanna-Barbera or whatever person who created Tom and Jerry had a big hate to cats, and this is why they created Tom and Jerry. And that kind of infected into a lot of things, and me being kind of like a little bit of kind of like a bias that I like cats, I thought that is not fair. But luckily, Dogman they managed to keep that aspect, but they did manage to well calm the fires by giving him at least a semblance of a personality. In this case, of course, yeah, Pete is basically kind of like the evil genius, basically Mojo Jojo, and you can and there's some quips that he gets annoyed that it kind of gets really funny. Like for example, when he fires his assistant, and the assistant basically just returns to him, but she doesn't return just to work at him. She always goes there just to spite him. That's hilarious. And also there's kind of like this silly thing in which he has a secret hideout, but it's not so secret when there's even big signs and nobody noticed. So you can tell that this movie doesn't take itself too seriously. But on the course of the movie, you can tell that he's basically kind of like a bitter cat, because well, it is later revealed that well, his father abandoned him, and well, that made him bitter. I know that it's not kind of like the most elaborate reason for people to be villain. It's kind of like the most cliche of them all, but you know what? I'll give it kind of like a pass, because his real arc happened when he creates his clone, Little Petey. Little Petey is basically kind of like his child version. Still very intelligent for his age, but he's more innocent and naive. And not gonna lie, he's so cute. Little Petey also becomes the heart of the movie, and becoming kind of like the reason of positive change in both Little Petey and Dogman itself. Little Petey actually gets reluctant to the kid, because well, he finds it annoying. He finds his naivety obstructive to his plan, which involves, of course, I think it was called Blinky. Blinky was called the dead fish that has psychokinesis. And well, then he gets abandoned, and of course Dogman finds it, and well, adopts him as his own child, and brings him kind of like it fills out the void that he had, because well, he felt lonely, a little bit underappreciated by the mayor, and Little Petey. It's almost like it comes kind of like the message that even the little things can, like a child, kind of give you some semblance of happiness. It was a time in which I kind of got sick and tired of it, but apparently my adult mind kind of now understand it, especially when. Usually it's when the time comes, not necessarily with your child, but I kind of begin to start getting these feelings ever since the birth of my nephew. But I will say that yeah, the little Petey moments are really heartwarming, especially when he interacts with both Dogman and Petey. And these kind of brings out kind of like the layers of emotional moments that this movie has. Even though again the whole thing is pretty chaotic, and it has a lot of plots, but it could have been worse. None of many of those things feel kind of like undercooked. It just cook enough. Let's say that it is medium rare, but at best, I'll say. That will bring me. Oh yeah, there's also the grandpa that they bring him along, but he's kind of like the awful father. Let's say that he hates his son. But he's not much there into the movie. But he just there kind of to showcase kind of like the plot of why Petey is like that. He just sees bitterness because he felt he was abandoned by his father. Okay, now I go with the cinematography. Not much I had to say. Although I will, yeah, I know. It's DreamWorks. Animation is really good. There's nothing much else to say. But well, okay, maybe I'll give it a little bit of specifics. Uh, it does have a little bit of a claymation feel, but this is mostly kind of like on the textures. Uh, you can tell that it has kind of like the Captain Underpants kind of style, in which a lot of things are silly. They even sometimes it gets a little bit too juvenile when they use some of the elements, like for example, for a city that is called OK City, I think it was called OK, almost like the city of Townsville. They are very, very convenient kind of like jokes. One of my favorite gags is that there is a store in which called the indifferent store, and they show that it is a store. It's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that kind of like dumb humor that I can't help but to chuckle on how silly it is. There's even kind of like a hotline in which there's some really sad guy in which he just pick up the phone and say, hey, that's life. uh, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it is that kind of style, and sometimes they even go, the use of text flying around, and the words, like for example, when someone say ooh, it goes like ooh, or there is also a very cute gag at the beginning of the movie in which the guy there is a couple of guys. There's a chase scene. There are some guys, that they usually are carrying a box. The box they say box of bees, and I don't remember if they have kind of like the bees there, and the box opens, and instead of the insects, it's literally letter B's. It's that kind of like cute thing, and also to make it reflect that this is a story made by kids. They kind of a little bit overuse the word super, but if they instead of I think they spell it more like it with an O instead of super. So it's like super, super, super. You're gonna repeat that word super a lot of times. Time. And so I am very appreciative of the animation style, and a little bit, of course, the silly, the pacing. The pacing, of course, it sometimes gets a little bit too fast. And I think if I'm not gonna overhype this movie for what it is, I will say that mostly because of the elements, there's a little bit too much. That will make the climax get a little bit too draggy, I'll say, because it tries to connect up the climax can get a little bit overstuffed, and with a lot of elements going on, you have to be in the right mood to be on to go on with the ride. I didn't have much of the problem, but I can see where it kind of makes people like, okay, this doesn't go too much here and there. So I can tell about that. And now I will say that, yeah, honestly, I don't see, people will, apparently people are calling this movie that some elements are kind of disturbing. Yeah, oh yeah, this is the thing that I want to finish it off a little bit, is that sometimes when you go very silly, sometimes things get disturbing, and this is typical when you really overanalyze a movie. And yeah, I can get it. First thing first, like for example, the dog main character itself. I mean, when you think about it, it's a guy that loses his head and then it's replaced by the body of a dog. It kind of sounds like a. Post-world, it sounds like a World War II German inhuman experiment. Almost like, or you know what? I went too far with that. Let's say like plague dogs. Yeah, plague dogs. Let's go with that. It's almost like that kind of experiment. And of course, you kind of question, of course, that, well, the guy's dead. This guy dead, and the dog survives because basically he's kind of like the brain. So where the soul of the guy go? Yeah, when you overanalyze this thing, it gets into creepy territory, and so in a way you have to be in the right mood to say, okay, let's buy this silly concept for what it is. And again, let's not forget that there's also the PD concept, because, well, the concept of PD is mostly him dealing with parent abandonment, making him the reason why he's evil, and later he kind of turns into the kind of like the reluctant villain, which again that brings layers to that. And, well, there's also a little bit of layers to Dogman, in which, of course, he had to deal that he had kind of like a nice life, but then, of course, the operation went on, sir, because he's dedicated to his job, but then his girlfriend just doesn't want any of this, and she abandoned him, so he has to live, the life of the Dogman. Man, I'm getting a little bit emotional in that one. When it's supposed to be it's supposed to be a silly story made by kids, and again, I get made by kids because it's made by the two kids that created Captain Underpants. I know there is a real life creator who is an adult here, but he did it with a perspective of a kid in mind. But anyway, I think I dragged this a little bit too much, but I think I am a little bit more generous to Duckman compared to other reviewers, and I will say that you have to be in the right mood to just embrace how silly the concept is. But it's over stuff, but you're less satisfied. It's just that movie that I needed. It brought me a smile on my face. It's not the greatest, and you don't expect something like that will give you kind of like, how can I say, bring you kind of like the meaning of life, like The Wild Robot or Flow. Great movies, yeah, but once in a while, just a nice silly moment that brings you a smile on your face is good enough for me to make it kind of like a B+ experience of the movie. So with that said, Dogman, he really was a good dog. Thank you. I had a good, super fun time.